This is an Ask Me Anything office hours about TypeScript. So pretty much this is here for people to ask questions about things they are wondering about with TypeScript, and particularly if you have any questions about the conventions and best practices document that I put out like a couple months ago and have had several chats about already, or any discussions you want to have about particular TypeScript features, how to use them, anything you saw in so this another resource is the creator manual, which is pretty TypeScript centric, but is more or less about the whole of Horizon Worlds. If there are any things in there that you had questions about that you wanted to ask about, and then finally, if anybody had any questions for things about the Creator Challenge, because there's 2 new Creator Challenges this week. For new creators, there's making an interactive gun, and it has some fairly descriptive steps of the sorts of things you need to do to make the gun shoot something. And then there's also a Creator Challenge for more experienced creators, which is basically built off of the basic gun that was in the new Creator Challenge, and just makes it a lot more interactive with a lot more features, a lot more VR friendly with haptics and feedback, like kickback feedback and things like that. So I'd recommend that if you haven't looked at the challenges yet, you go and check them out. They're in the events and competitions section of the forum. They're pinned at the top, so you should be able to easily find them. And if you complete the challenge, which basically consists of, doing the thing in the challenge, publishing the world, and then post in a thread, your world link, and a screenshot of you doing something with your new gun and any sort of feedback you have about the challenge. Yeah, those are the URLs. I guess Pat's posting the new Creator Challenge in the chat, and the Experienced Creator Challenges right next to that one. The scripting for the challenge, in order to do you probably don't actually need to use TypeScript to do either of these ones. Now that I think about it, you definitely don't need TypeScript to do this one, but I would recommend that you try to pick up TypeScript, because that is the way of the future for Horizon Worlds. So I would recommend trying it with TypeScript. I definitely mention a lot of things even in the new Creator Challenge about using preStart and things like that, which these are very TypeScript specific things. And then I'm linking out to a lot of the creator manual documentation, which is fairly TypeScript centric. So I would recommend using the TypeScript. You can always, of course, do it in code blocks and then translate it to TypeScript later if you want, if you're more comfortable with code blocks. But the point of this challenge is to level up your skills. So I would recommend going for using TypeScript. So Tuna has a hand raised, I guess. Did you have a question?
You mentioned pre-start, and I have been looking intently at the tutorials. I've already gone through the simple gun tutorial, just enough to make it work. That was 2 weeks ago, and recently, last night, I came across part of one of the forum tutorials there, a word super, and it was used before the word start. It's contained within the start. There's the start, and then there's a super start, and then the word super is called or used with reference to other functions. And I'm having a little bit of a difficulty wrapping my mind around how to properly use start, pre-start, and now, as I just mentioned, this super start.
Yeah.
I'm I'm just
So
I'm very new, so I have a lot of questions that you may seem to you as nominal
no,
or
no, that's the point of
whatever.
this, is to ask your questions and get things answered so that you can, go crazy and make whatever you desire to create. So there's a section in my style guide document, which let me make sure I just I think it was put in the meeting invite, but I'm just going to drop it again into the chat. There's a section in here about start and pre-start. So when you have a component, which is where you do your TypeScript coding that adds behavior to entities. Entities are the things that you see in the 3D, and components are the things that add behavior to the entities that you see. So when your components are initialized, they get two functions called on them in order. The pre-start function is called first, and after all of the entities have had pre-start called on them, then there's another pass, and the start method is called on all of the entities. So pre-start is really a way to set up your component to be ready to receive events from other components. And then start is where everything should be set up by now, and you can actually start sending events. So one of the things I call out in this, in the best practices document, is don't connect events in start, connect the events in pre-start. That way, because pre-start's the place where you should set up all of your listeners, all of your connecting to events, and never send events in pre-start. Always send your events in start, because if you send them in pre-start, other components might not yet have been set up to listen to them. So you always want to delay sending events until start, because everybody should have set up their events in pre-start. So that's sort of what start and pre-start are about. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. I
Okay.
definitely understood that part of it.
Yeah.
It's just that when I found this other line within the start aspect,
Right.
um,
So I can talk about super next.
yes, yes,
So
please.
um, so there's one before I talk about super. There's if you're doing a UI component, there is one other function that gets called on startup, and that's initialize UI. If it's a UI component, initialize UI is called before pre-start. So just be aware that, if it's a normal component, it's pre-start and then start. If it's a UI component, it's going to be initialize UI, then pre-start, and then start. So the super keyword in TypeScript is really about the class hierarchy. So as you may notice when you are when you're writing code, you say things like, this extends that. You have your class extending some other class. So what you're doing is hello world here is a subclass of the component class here. And start here is actually overriding the start method in the component class. There's already a start method in the component class, and my hello world here is overriding that start method and giving it a new definition. If you wanted to access the definition that's in the superclass, like this component here is the superclass of hello world. So as I was trying to, hello world is a subclass of component. Component is the superclass. Start is overriding the definition of a start that it's getting from the superclass. If you want to access, for some reason, say you wanted to access the functionality of the start that's in the superclass, you can say super.start. And that will actually, call the start in the superclass. Doesn't work here for particular reasons that I could get into, but that's really what super is. Super is a way of like, oh, if I'm overriding something in a subclass, actually, start is sort of a strange case because it's an abstract method in the base class. If I did an override of pre-start, so then, for instance, here, this is basically saying in my pre-start, I want to actually call this the superclass as pre-start, because this is the only way you can get access to the superclass. So that's really what super is about. It's when you have a class hierarchy and you're overriding something from the superclass, but you still want to actually go and use it. It's not terribly often used in Horizon Worlds programming. So I'm not sure that you'll have a lot of need for it. There are some cases where people in some of the template examples have made intermediate classes in between they've made their own utility classes that are subclasses of component that then they want to use. They want to then subclass again. So like you can make, hello intermediate. And then, so we could have our start, which is like, it's hello world. And then we could make a subclass of this. And so in this case, what I'm doing is I'm defining an intermediate class that I might want to use, console. I might want to use for to do some utilities that I'm gonna be using over and over again, and then like I wanted to be able to say hello world on start every time, and in all of the subclasses that I'm using of this, and then this would be a way for me to make a subclass hello world, which extends hello intermediate, and then calls the superclass to say, oh, I want to run that method. Does that make sense for what super does?
It certainly sheds a lot of light on my questions. It probably saved me about 2 weeks of fiddling.
Yeah, it's not really super commonly used in Horizon World, but there are a lot of the template definitions, a lot of the tutorials that do some trickery where they make some sort of intermediate class. Like I think that a lot of the NPC tutorials have sort of like an intermediate NPC agent that then they subclass again to make a bunch of specific instances like the chicken and the robot and stuff like that. So that's sort of what super would be used if they had some like behavior that they were trying to gather from some superclass. I mean, you could have some like my function, that does, something, and then you could, likewise here override my function, and you want to call super my function and do more things. So just you can do it with anything if you wanted to make a subclass be able to have some common behavior that it's inheriting from some intermediate base class. Again, I would like to reiterate though, this is a bit more of an advanced things that I rarely have to do in Horizon Worlds. So it's not something I would really focus in on. You might see it in some of the tutorials where they're making these intermediate utility classes like the AI agent one that then they subclass to do other things with.
Mm. Well, thank you for that. It was
Sure.
very helpful for me to hear that, because I don't think I was exposed to the notion of subclasses just yet, and I'm definitely struggling with the vernacular and the nomenclature, and asking for help can be really difficult for me because I would never have known to say, "Oh, what do you know about subclasses?" Right?
Yeah, this is a subclass thing. So again, like TypeScript, like many other object-oriented languages, supports class hierarchies. So you could just describe, a base class like you might to have a class, class animal or something like that, and then you might have like a class dog that extends animal, You know, that's a more specialized version of an animal, and you might have a class, you know, dachshund or something like that extends dog. So this is sort of an example of a class hierarchy where you know, you could put like very common animal behaviors in here, and then dog could have like has all the behaviors of animal plus some other ones like the ability to bark, and then the dachshund has all the attributes of a dog plus the animal, and yeah, it can do whatever special things the dachshunds can do. But that's then dog is the superclass of dachshund, animal is the superclass of dog. You know, dog is the subclass of animal. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense to people.
Yes, yes. I'm actually taking some analog notes right now.
Okay. All right. Any other questions about either where'd it go? The TypeScript best practices or the creator manual or either one of the new creator or experienced creator challenges?
I
Oh,
have a couple of questions. I wrote up VR app in Colton with using the Metaspatial SDK. Can I reuse any of these things here?
with Kotlin, you said?
So I wrote an app on for the MetaQuest VR
Right.
in
Yes. So this
Colton.
is, yeah, you cannot use any of your like C# or Kotlin or Java or whatever other code in Horizon Worlds. Everything in Horizon Worlds needs to be written in either TypeScript or with code blocks. But again, the sort of trend these days is to move towards TypeScript.
Got it.
So it doesn't run Kotlin or Java or C# or anything like that.
And what about those SDKs? Are there a equivalent SDK here, similar to Metaspatial SDK?
There are SDKs, but they are very specific to Horizon Worlds. So um, there is, for instance, the core SDK, core library, the core module, which has most of the core functionality. If you open up the scripting API page in the desktop editor, for some reason, I don't know why. I think it's because of the screen share that Horizon World is super sluggish. But you can turn on a bunch of additional APIs for like the AI agent and world streaming and camera and Unity asset bundles and the UI and things like that. And then you'll have access to those from your TypeScript code. I don't know why I can't make this thing behave sanely. It seems just to not be responding. So you don't have access to like any of the Unity kinds of APIs or the Quest APIs. You only have access to the Horizon Worlds APIs, which are all in TypeScript.
Got it. Thanks. And one quick, I have a Mac laptop. Can I use any of these things in Mac, or I need a Windows laptop?
You need a Windows laptop. They don't support Macs. So you need to, because the desktop editor only runs on Windows. And so you need a Windows laptop, or you need like some sort of virtualized Windows experience so that you can access, so it looks like Windows to the desktop editor, but there's no Mac desktop editor. Anyway,
Got
this is also a location where you can see all of the APIs that are available to you. Let's drop that into the chat. This has all the APIs that you'll be able to see. If some of these APIs you might not be able to get access to because I have some additional ones, but like the core and the capturing and the nav mesh and the performance UI, world streaming, and the asset bundles, like these are all the different APIs that have been published to MHCP, like all the avatar AI agent stuff. So you'll be able to look through all of the TypeScript APIs and see nicely formatted documentation about how to use it. Additionally, again, the creator manual goes into great depth into how a lot of these features work. So I would definitely recommend looking at that as well.
Thank you.
I have a really quick question.
Mhm.
As far as the APIs go, when you're creating like an AI to actually bring it into the world and have it move around, are we able to do that yet or no?
What do you mean by an AI? Do you want to have an AI agent that moves around in the world?
Yes, specifically that interacts with other avatars.
Yeah, I mean, so you have a few things that you're able to do with that. So in let me find the desktop editor, it's under here somewhere. Again, I don't know why this thing is lagging out so much on me, but there's really two ways you can bring in agents right now. One of them is, I don't know why this does not want to.
This would be an already created agent.
You can't bring in anything from the outside. You
Okay.
have to use things that are inside.
Mhm.
You can create an avatar that you can configure from within Horizon Worlds, which will be just like another player. And that's again, I don't know why this won't show why this is so laggy, but there is here we go. There is the NPC. This will give you basically an NPC gizmo that looks like just an avatar. And then you can configure its look, using the same way you would configure your own avatar. I got a safe spawn zone rather than the NPC. So like you can edit this avatar and you could make it look however you want. And the other thing that you have available to you is in the public assets, there's NPCs in here, which are really Unity asset bundles. And there's like a robot and a chicken and a zombie, and then you can use those and move them around. But those ones come pre-packaged for you, and there's no way to import your own right now. You can only
Okay.
use like
So
the
as
ones
far
that
as
they have.
having the one that you just put in there,
Mhm.
that NPC, is there a option somewhere to have that be able to interact with an avatar?
It is more or less indistinguishable from a player avatar. I mean, so what do you mean by interact? You can have it
Like
walk
speak to
around.
and respond.
Right. Oh, so you mean like the LLM kind of things? Not currently, although
Okay.
there are definitely worlds in Horizon Worlds that have LLM-based avatar interactions, but it's not something that's currently available to the MHCP yet. So we can't actually do that. But it appears, from if you go and you visit some of the, meta authored worlds that the feature exists
Yeah.
and they're rolling it out, and so one can only hope that we will get it soon. So like I think as Tuna said, like you can record some audio clips and you can, play those audio clips, but they will be sort of more canned responses. Like you could make the player say hello to somebody by just having an audio clip that you move, to the player and then play when the avatar is near them. But like full like LLM generative AI kind of conversations are not currently possible for MHCP. Sassy asks, any guidance on how to properly use Quaternions to rotate players? So let's see. Mostly you don't need to know a lot about how Quaternions work. What you do need to do is understand how to make them. So so the Quaternion, let me just dump to so this is the Quaternion API in the documentation. So like these values, like the X, Y, Z, and W of the Quaternion, you should just pretty much just forget that they exist. You will never be able to set these correctly unless you like have a pretty advanced math degree. You're going to want to always use like to Euler or from Euler in order to create them. Or the other one is using the look rotation That's, this is the most often way that I create a quaternion is like, I want something that's looking in a certain direction with a certain up. And that's, I know which direction I want it to look, and I know which direction is up, and I just use a look rotation and I get the quaternion. I have no idea what all those XYZWs are going to be in it, but I know that this is going to be the quaternion that points in a certain direction. So that's, that's the main way you're going to use quaternions is from using look rotation or from Euler. And there's really no reason to try to use like some of the, like from Vec3. No, from axis angle, this is also a newer way to create quaternions. If you know some axis you want to rotate around and an angle you want to rotate around, you could just use that. So Sassy, if you could say like what in particular didn't work when you tried using from Euler with that. Sassy, maybe not. Not sure if Sassy's still around or not, or
Hi, can you hear me? This is actually Sassy Noodle that asked the question.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's hard for me to explain what was happening, but I was trying to do quaternion that from Euler, and no matter what I put in the XYZ, I was just never to get something that I expected. A lot of the time, nothing would really change. It would kind of always set me to look in a particular direction, no matter what the numbers were.
So like if you, let's just say, for instance, we had, I'm just making some stuff up here. Class. So say we wanted to make a quaternion, rotation equals quaternion dot, you're doing from Euler, so you want to think about the quaternion, say this is going to be a 90-degree rotation around the y-axis, so it's just going to turn them, I guess from looking straight ahead to looking to the right. There is this Euler order. Were you setting a Euler order for it?
I was using just the default one, which I think is Euler order.xyz.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the default is in Horizon World is not XYZ. It's the default that we
Oh,
use on this function is XYZ, but I think the default is something order. I think it's like YXZ or ZYX or something like that. I think it's some weird thing like that. I'm pretty sure in the manual. Euler order, the default value for the Euler order angle order is YXZ. So basically, when you're translating from a Euler order into a quaternion, so the reason we don't use Euler angles in 3D graphics is because they're not, they have problems. They have a bunch of degenerate cases. They have the order in which you apply the rotations matter. And so that's why you have to specify the Euler order here when you're saying like, which one is first, which one is second, and which one is third. Like when you say Euler order of YXZ, it's saying first rotate by 90 degrees, then rotate by whatever the X value is, and then rotate by whatever the Z value is. If the X and Z are 0, it doesn't really matter what the order is because only one of them is going to have an effect. But if you are going to compound together other angles like X and Y and Z, like pitch and yaw and roll, then you need to think very carefully about making sure that you have the right Euler order being used. So this is why I
gotcha.
generally don't use from Euler. I just use look at or the look rotation, because say for instance I have some pause to look at, which is some vector, for right now, we'll just say it's, and I want to basically, and so I have like, const pause where I'm at, some other location. So I can do a quaternion look, can say I want to look where, from where I want to go from where I'm at, and then I would use, vec3 up, I would just say, and I want the y direction to be up, and then I will get a rotation that is easy for me to understand. Just like I know what I want to look at, I know where I am. So look at minus where I am is the direction from where I am to where I want to look, because you need to pass a direction as the first argument to a look rotation. And then the second argument to look rotation is up. And so this is the sort of form that I almost always use, which is like, I just get a rotation from like a vector where I want to look at. If you're working with an entity, you can also do look at, and you just can give it just directly the position to look at, and it will make that, this will automatically do this rotation calculation for you and then set the rotation of the entity. So this is sort of like a shortcut that works for entities. But anyways, once you have this quaternion, it's called root rotation set, rotation, that would be how you'd set the root rotation of a player. Just to get the rotation and set it with the rotation. So anyway, I don't know what you were using for your Euler angles. If it was a really funny compound Euler angle, you might have had some problems. This root rotation also only rotates the player around the y-axis too. So if you sent this rotation, if you made this rotation have some x or z rotation up to it, it wouldn't actually affect the player's rotation because it only rotates around y. Sort of, it's only a yaw component rotation right now. That helpful?
Very helpful. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure. So let's see. So Tuna is about triggers and sound. Good question. Avatars need to be seated before they can spawn as such. You can also put an avatar in a seat and then rotate the seat. And when you rotate the seat, you can actually also rotate the avatar and pitch and roll as well. This root rotation is a new API that came out like a week ago or something like that, which lets you actually rotate the player without them being seated, which is sort of new, but it can only rotate them around the Y. So King of Miami is, I guess there couldn't be a rotate over time. So as you may or may not have noticed, if you've come to TypeScript from code blocks, is that there are no movement or rotation or scale over time APIs at all. You have to do all of that sort of over time calculation on your own. And you need to, if you want to sort of take the shortcut, you can go and get Waffles utils from his website. And he has an over time class that will try to act very much like the code block version of overtime. But if you look at the internals of, well, I would recommend not looking at the internals of Waffles overtime class until you're very experienced with TypeScript, because it uses a lot of advanced features of TypeScript to make it easier for him to maintain. But the essence of what's happening inside of Waffles overtime class is that basically you set up a you're going to be setting up like a on update handler, so rotate and this is like target rotation. Is you're going to need to basically do that connect local broadcast event world on update. to just read updates. And then you will need to you'll need to write like your own on update script that every frame is like figuring out the delta time from the last frame and then doing a little bit of rotation each frame in order to get you from like your start rotation to your end rotation. So you would probably have like a start rotation. There's a target rotation. So you'd have to like keep track of like how far you're into the rotation, how long the rotation should be, and you would need to do all this math on your own every frame. So I don't know if anybody wants me to go into a detail of like implementing up like how you do an overtime type of thing with on update, because it's got a few more pieces to it. But I see there's a bunch of other comments in the chat, so I'm just going to go and make sure I cover those because no one specifically asked for how to do an overtime thing. I would definitely, if you just wanted like cut to the chase, go and grab Waffle's overtime util, and it will probably do most everything you need. Is there a way to attach an object to an NPC? For an NPC avatar AI agent using that NPC gizmo, this one right here, these guys are basically players for all extents and purposes. So once you have them spawned in and you get their agent player, you can, attach objects to their head or their torso. You can make them hold things. So yeah, you can do most everything you can do with a regular player with one of these NPC players. They have a few special APIs for how you interact with making them grab and drop things, because it's a little different than the way they grab and drop things like with a normal player. They have their own special force hold and release API that you have to use. But more or less anything you can do with them with a regular player, you can do with an NPC agent. You can even call the PPV APIs, but like the PPVs aren't really persistent. So like as soon as the NPC, as soon as the world instance shuts down, like that data doesn't get persisted somewhere for real. So it's not, you can't really use them to like remember things between two sessions because they don't, the NPCs don't do that. Can NPCs be synced with same timing to audio? Choreograph dance. So the NPCs, they do have movement APIs, and you could have like a bunch of different NPCs in your world at once, and you could tell them all to move in the same position at the same time or rotate all at the same time just by using the NPC APIs. There's no way to find out where you are in an audio clip right now. So you would have to sort of have arranged that ahead of time. You would have to have listened to your audio and know like at 500 milliseconds in, this is happening, at 1.5 seconds, this is happening, at 3.5 seconds in, this is happening. And then when you started the audio, you would need to like just keep track of the time progressing and probably using something like an on update loop with the delta time to figure out when you got to a specific point in your time code for your audio, so that then you could make all of your avatars do something at that point. Yeah. Anyway, if I could make this API thing work, I could turn on the AI agent API and I could show you what that looked like, but I don't know, for whatever reason, Horizon Worlds is not really wanting to cooperate today and show me. There, it finally brought up the screen. I was referring to the overtime motions for tuna for the specialized session. Sure, yeah. We could definitely talk about that at some point, or maybe we could have like a workshop with using overtime, writing overtime handlers. Click, apply. Okay, maybe it's finally there. Apply. All right. So that added the Avatar AI agent API, which has a bunch of abilities for it to. So the AI agent has abilities to have locomotion and grabbable interaction. It has some special ways you can tell the AI agent to move around with its locomotion like API. You can tell the AI agent to grab things with its grabbable interaction API. So I can mock up some of these things if we want to try some of that, or if people have other questions that they would want to ask, let me know. It is an AMA, so again, just want to remind people that there are
Raise hands.
yeah, I don't see if people have raised hands. You can just chat if you want, because I don't see little raised hands in my
Okay,
UI.
sorry. Yeah, I'm having a hard time with so I am traditionally a Unity and XR developer, right?
Mhm.
Coming into and doing C sharp, right?
Mhm.
And so so some of the aspects are really familiar to me, which is exciting, right?
Sure.
But I can't figure out how. I know this is strange, but I can't figure out why my scripts aren't compiling, right? So
Okay.
yeah, it just won't. Like if I try to create a new world, the scripts don't compile. If I try to go through the initial tutorial for TypeScript, it compiles all the scripts that come with it, right? But
Mhm.
it won't compile anything new, and I don't know why. I downloaded the extension, the JavaScript extension, for hoping that would fix it, right? For VS Code, and that didn't
Right.
work. So I just don't
No,
know what I'm
VS
doing
Code should
wrong.
work pretty much out of the box because VS Code was written as a sort of TypeScript editor. So you
Okay.
really don't need to do much configuration of VS Code to get up and going. Like if you see, you should see little squiggles under things. Like if I, wrote this, if I mistyped function here, and just you get the little red squiggle under here, and if you look over here, you'll see the let me close this one because it's causing a bunch of. You'll see, an error, all of your errors in your world, like this method can have an override because it's not declared in the base class. There's so are you seeing these little squiggles under the problems, and you're seeing the problems list in the VS Code output?
No, there's no errors. Like there won't be any errors. I'll make one with like the Llama
Mhm.
API, and there won't be any errors. They just won't compile.
So when you say they won't compile. So when you're in VS Code, um,
Everything's fine. But when I go back to the Horizon editor, what happens
yes,
is it just
when you
doesn't
go here and you look
yeah.
at the console, if you switch this over to the status view,
Mm-hmm.
it will show you per script, like how things are going with it. Assuming this will ever switch. Come on. Yeah, there we go. So this will show you per scripts, like if there are particular errors or warnings in each script, it will give you sort of a summary here
Okay,
of
cool.
what's going on. And then if there were a problem, like if I go back and I break this again, and then we'll come back over to Horizon Worlds, and it will, in a moment, it will rebuild. So it's recompiling that. Still compiling. You can see the status up here. This is the I am thinking color. Eventually this will turn red. I don't know why this is so slow today.
And it started doing this strange thing where sometimes it would it would like copy the script almost, but it would just name it as script 1, script 2, script 3. It wouldn't name it as the class it actually was.
You're using fileback scripts, or do you know if you're using fileback scripts or not?
I don't know. I just
Is it a brand new world, like you just did new world fairly recently?
it does it on New Worlds and it does it
Yeah.
on the tutorial, because I thought, well, I'll just try it in both just to test out, see if it like you're saying, like it's a new world or an already established one. So yeah, I was just wondering if there was something that I did wrong when setting it up, because I was
I
so
mean, it
used
definitely
to
sounds like
Unity.
a very local configuration problem of some sort that's very strange on your particular setup, because it sounds like it otherwise should just work. Especially like the fact that you're getting all these duplicate script names, and if you're using a new world, yeah, I'm not sure why that would happen. Are you going up to the scripts dialog here, the scripts panel, and doing plus and adding the script that way?
Yeah,
And it's still coming
yeah,
in with like script 1, script 2, script 3, and not the name that you typed in there?
yes, but it seems like it only does it like sometimes, but otherwise it
Yeah.
just won't compile. And so I just thought, well, maybe the best course of action is there's probably something set up in my VS Code. I just need to uninstall and reinstall that if that's the case, because I don't really use
Yeah,
it.
I would install a
So
very stock VS Code without a lot of additional stuff in it. I mean, there's definitely things that I've added to VS Code, but I haven't added very many extensions. And I do talk about some of this in the conventions document. Like I have the spell checker, and I have GitHub Copilot installed, and I have some other GitHub things installed,
yeah.
and the annotator. But like I don't have very many. I have Prettier installed and some Markdown stuff installed, and live share is super useful to have. But
Can
I
you
don't have very
put that
much.
link in the chat, please?
For what?
You said that you went into some of the things that you actually did install that were helpful in the
Yeah,
document.
so I do have, I
Thank
did
you for your
mention
help.
in the, down in here, some plugins. I
Okay.
do mention some
Plugins.
plugins that I have installed. These ones are just like, these are for like Prettier is super useful. And the spell checker is useful. Unfortunately, the ESLint one is very hard to configure in because of the way that Meta has done their desktop editor. It kind of gets uninstalled every time the desktop editor runs. So I kind of would not recommend people use ESLint right now, just because unless you really want to get that kind of level of best practice review on your code, but like the next time you run the desktop editor, it's going to disable it again. So it's kind of like something you do infrequently to make sure that your code is all following conventions, but you can't really keep it installed all the time because it's just too much to maintain. I would recommend using I would recommend GitHub Copilot. That is super useful for making your TypeScript coding experience more efficient, because it will GitHub Copilot is just like a generative AI assistant that will like help you write your code. And if it's watching what you do and it learns as it goes, it sometimes has all the problems of other generative AI. Sometimes it makes things up. but oftentimes it's easy to use to just spit out a bunch of code that you would otherwise had to spend a lot of time typing out yourself. So definitely recommend it. I think it's free for now. There's a free version of Copilot. There's also a paid version that is $10 a month, but the free version, which definitely everybody could try out and see if they like it. And there's other things besides GitHub Copilot that you can use to do code generation for you. There is the one that's built into the desktop editor that's very Horizon specifics, but I don't use it because I'm just in VS Code all the time, and I have very specific things that I want to do. Anyway, so yeah, I would just recommend the spell checker, Copilot, and Live Share, and Prettier are probably the ones that you want right now.
So don't use another IED. I tried that too, just to see, but it got, I think I don't remember what happened, but it didn't work as well.
You tried a different one besides VS Code?
Because I usually use Community just because I guess it's just easier. I mean, not easier, it's easier visually for me at least, and that's what I've been using for years now. So, but I have used, I first started with VS Code, but it sounds like because you said, like you said that it's tailored, TypeScript is tailored for this IED, so that's why, right? That's why we're using it.
Yeah, VS Code was built to be a really good TypeScript editor. So and it's well integrated with Horizon Worlds. So I would probably recommend it. Also, it has this live share feature, which if you're going to collaborate with other people, you're basically able to, share the same workspace, and you can see where they are and where you are, and you can type in the same file at the same time. So it's super useful for collaborative over the shoulder kind of development.
That's cool. So you don't have to necessarily use GitHub or something of, yeah, that's neat.
Well, it's kind of like live sharing. Like GitHub is a
Yeah.
place where you can stick your code, and that's kind of like offline sharing. But live share is like you basically host an editing session in your VS Code, and you invite other people, and they connect into your VS Code, and they're basically able to type into your code without ever having to have downloaded it from anywhere. They just have it through your invite, and then you can see their cursors right here and your cursors over here, and you can type at the same time, and you can, it's really useful. But like, you're only going to be able to do that with other people who have VS Code. So, and most everybody doing Horizon development is using VS Code. So if you want to use the live share thing to do collaborative stuff, you're going to probably want to use VS Code.
Cool. Thank you so much for your help in answering all my questions.
Sassy mentions that he benefits a ton from Pretty TypeScript errors as well. That's a plugin, I presume.
Yeah, it's an extension that kind of makes it a lot easier to read those typing errors that you see when you hover over the squigglies.
Yeah, so this one, it makes it like less difficult to parse.
Yeah, it kind of adds, in a way, syntax highlighting to there. It helps
Okay.
a lot.
Yeah, that'd probably be cool. All right, so I think we're coming up on our hour. Did anybody have any last burning questions before we wrap up? Perhaps no. Again, I recommend reviewing both the common conventions and best practices for TypeScript, reviewing the creator manual, and then just a reminder that there's these 2 challenges going right now for the new creators and experienced creators for making this interactive gun. So just whip it up and then post it on Thread, and there's like some badges that you can earn for completing one or multiple challenges.